All right, welcome back to my channel, True Crime Fans. I'm your host, Tim Solberg, and today I'm going to bring you a little bit of a different video. We are going to still talk about a lawsuit, but this lawsuit doesn't end in murder or anything like our previous videos. This one is going to focus on the CEO of Stark Industries, Pepper Potts. Yes, she started out as the personal assistant to Tony Stark, a.k.a. Iron Man, and took over Stark Industries as CEO. Now, for the rest of us, we might know her as Gwyneth Paltrow, and she's famous for movies like Hook, Seven, Shallow Hal, and many Avengers movies, including all of the Iron Men that have been released. So let's talk a little bit about this case. This case to me is borderline humorous. Now, I say borderline because the person that filed this case did have some broken ribs and also suffered a concussion. So with that, I would say the humor is taken out of it for sure, but the case itself is somewhat humorous and why it was brought. So let's talk a little bit about that. All right, so back in 2016, Gwyneth Paltrow was skiing at Deer Valley Resort in Park City, Utah. Now, she was skiing on what they say was kind of like the bunny slope, or the slope where you would start learning how to ski. Now, at that time, there was also a gentleman there who was retired. He was a previous doctor named Terry Sanderson. Now, Terry Sanderson at some point alleges that Gwyneth Paltrow ran into him while skiing. Now, here's where the story gets a little bit murky. If you actually read what Terry Sanderson says and what Gwyneth Paltrow's team says, they both allege that they were ran into each other. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you listen to Terry Sanderson and what he alleges in his suit is basically he heard somebody that was screaming like a maniac coming down the hill and was moving at a very high rate of speed, couldn't control themselves, and ultimately ran into him, which essentially knocked him unconscious, ended up with some broken ribs, and also had a concussion. Now, if you listen to the countersuit from Team Gwyneth Paltrow, they say something kind of similar. However, they put a detail in their case that leads us to believe that Gwyneth Paltrow was the one that got ran into. And what I mean by that is in the countersuit, for $1, I might add, Gwyneth Paltrow's team says that she was in the lower part of the hill and Terry Sanderson was coming from above her. So depending on which story you listen to, it's not stated that Gwyneth Paltrow was above Terry Sanderson. However, in his version, it does lead you to believe that she would have been coming from a higher portion in the hill. Now, anybody that's been skiing, I'm an avid skier and snowboarder myself, you know that you are the responsible party when you're at the higher portion of the hill. So when you're coming down, it is up to you to be keeping your eye out for fellow skiers, for your peers that are on the slopes, and it is up to you to avoid hitting somebody that's lower down on the hill than you are, right? So that is going to be a huge major factor. Another major factor that I think plays out in this is that the original case was for $3.2 million. Now, the judge dismissed most of this case based off of the facts that they have seen so far, and now the suit is for $300,000, and this will be going to trial essentially next week. Now, a couple of you are probably thinking, if you go look at Gwyneth Paltrow's Wikipedia, she is famous for many, many, many movies. Not only that, she has a candle line and some other things that she's got her hand dipped into. So money doesn't seem to be the factor here. What I think is going to be the factor, and why I said at the start of this video that some of this is humorous, is because based off of where Gwyneth Paltrow was, right? If she was coming from on top of the hill and ran into Mr. Sanderson, then she would be the one that was at fault. Now, if she was lower on the hill, no matter where she was going, it would be up to Mr. Sanderson to do everything that he possibly could to avoid Gwyneth Paltrow. Now, what I think is interesting on this one is that anybody that's been to a ski hill knows that there is somewhat of liability you give up when you go onto a ski hill. Now, when somebody does sue, they do have the ability and the eligibility to sue for negligence, right? So Mr. Sanderson can sue Gwyneth Paltrow on this if he can prove that she was the one that ran into him and that she, for some reason, was not in control and it was reasonable for her to be in control, right? And then the second piece, He could also go after the ski hill or the ski resort based on what the conditions were at the time. Now, do keep in mind that this is a beginner hill or a bunny hill as we've read it so far. We won't know all of the details until they are in court, but I just don't see Mr. Sanderson winning this case. Now, I say that, but if Gwyneth Paltrow was at the top of the hill and she was learning and she ran into Mr. Sanderson, then I do think that $300,000 would be fair. Now, for some of you, you might say, why is that number so high? Well, keep in mind, Mr. Sanderson's 76. He is retired and he previously was a doctor, so he was probably making more than that in a year. And you got to think we took away a certain portion of his retirement. He has had some effects since this accident, and we do feel for him. And again, that's why I say that takes all the humor out of the case, because somebody was seriously injured, broken ribs, and a concussion. Besides that, I think the case itself is frivolous, and I think that they're going to walk away from this. Now, there is one more person that is involved in this case, which is Mr. Christensen, who ended up being a ski instructor. Now, Mr. Sanderson said that when Mr. Christensen was taking the details down, he wrote some of the details wrong, and he didn't actually see Gwyneth Paltrow coming down the hill at that point. So that's why he is being sued. But again, we will see it in the court case, and we'll see who comes out of this. Now, I'm going to end it with this. So think of it from a perspective: big movie star runs into a civilian, or civilian runs into a big movie star. Either way, it's going to be a high-profile case. I thought it was pretty interesting because of the background, especially from a superhero movie, right? I think people are going to be interested in listening to this case, but I think from an educational purpose, this really helps a lot of people like me who spend a lot of time on the ski hill to kind of come forward with what liability do I have and what responsibilities do I have for other people that are on the ski hill, whether I run into somebody or somebody runs into me. So with that being said, I hope that you like this video this week. Hit that subscribe and that like button. We are growing very fast, and I do appreciate that. So I hope everybody has a wonderful week, and I hope that you like the alternative video this week. On that note, have a great night. I will see you all next video.